Okay, I'm going to spend a little bit of time going over the tests from last Friday. If you don't have your tests with you, I know third period didn't come to class today because we didn't have third period, so you didn't get your test back. But just go through the problems and just kind of see if you did the same thing. You kind of check your answers. I'm going to suggest you go through all the things and just watch. Now, there's a couple of ways to do number one. The mathematical way would be to do this. We'd say, since we have an absolute value by itself, we write two equations, x plus 4 equals 2, and x plus 4 equals negative 2. And then we solve each one just like we would in 8th grade. X equals negative 2, and we solve this one. X equals negative 6. So there's two answers, negative 2 and negative 6. We still have to check to make sure they work, and when we do, we could say negative 2 minus negative 2 plus 4, that's 2. Absolute value 2 is 2, that works. I can go also with the second one, negative 6 plus 4, which is negative 2. The absolute value of negative 2 is also 2, so 6 and 2 is the correct answer. Nobody should ever miss that. We can just check the answers. We didn't even have to go through this process over here because of multiple choice. This is the same procedure. We can just plug the numbers in. If I wanted to write two equations, it doesn't take that long. Absolute value of 4x plus 2 over 5 equals 2 means two equations. 4x plus 2 over 5 equals 2. 4x plus 2 over 5 equals negative 2. And now we multiplied 5 to both sides here. So I got 4x plus 2 equals 10. And here we multiply by 5. 4x plus 2 equals negative 10. These 5s are going to cancel. And now I solve this one the same way I always did. I put minus 2, 4x equals 8, x equals 2. And here we subtract 2, 4x equals negative 4, x equals negative 1. So there should be two answers here. Positive 2 and negative 1. That should be our correct answer right there. When we plug this back in, they both work. You can check that one. This one here is one that kind of baffled me on how many people miss it. Hopefully we missed it simply because we did see the word not satisfy. Because if I put these numbers in, negative 4, absolute value of negative 4 is greater than or equal to 2. Absolute value of negative 4 is 4. Is greater than or equal to. That's true. So it's true. It says what does not satisfy. So that does satisfy. That's out. For B, we plug in negative 2. Absolute value of negative 2 is greater than or equal to 2. 2 is greater than or equal to 2. That's a true statement because it's greater than or equal to. So this one works. So that's out because it's what doesn't work here. When I put in 0, I get absolute value of 0 is greater than 2. 0 is greater than 2. That's not true. So this is the solution that does not satisfy. And just to check, we go to the last one, put in 4. The absolute value of 4 is 4. Absolute value of 4 is 4, so 4 is greater than 2 is true. That's the answer, C. Okay. This problem is kind of a tricky one. What I suggest we can do a couple things. Well, a couple things we can do is just pick a number that's on the graph. Basically, I want the absolute value. So basically, I'm going to write two equations. X is greater than negative 2. This is a little tricky one. X is less than 2. But it has to be all. This is kind of a tricky problem. I wouldn't expect everybody to get this mathematically, but logically, looking at the pictures, we can. Which graph here would work here? So let's go back and look at it that way, because it's kind of confusing because things overlap. So absolute value of x is greater than 2, greater than negative 2, excuse me. Let's pick a number. Pick a number like 4. I'm going to choose 4 randomly. If I could have choose 3, 5, anything, any number, I picked 4 to see if it's true. Absolute value of 4 is greater than negative 2. Is that true? Absolute value of 4 is 4. 4 is greater than negative 2. That's true. So 4 is could be a solution. So this and this and this are good. This one is not good, so we can cross that out. Let's pick another number. We'll pick a number in the middle, maybe somewhere like 0. Absolute value of 0 is greater than negative 2. 0 is greater than negative. That's actually true also. So 0 has to be a solution. It's not a solution here and here. This is my answer. Now this is kind of a tricky one that some people could have looked at from the very beginning and said the absolute value, because I know what absolute value means, whatever's inside of here is going to become a positive number or 0. And every number that's bigger than or equal to 0 is greater than a negative number, so all numbers would work here. Any number I put for x will be true, so that would work. So D is the correct answer to that one. All right, let's keep going on here. This one now we have to do the mathematical thing where we write two equations. 1/2 x plus 1 is less than or equal to 1, and then 1/2 x minus 1 plus 1 is greater than or equal to negative 1. And we solve each one here. I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. I got 1/2 x is less than or equal to 0. Okay, so to multiply by a half, whatever, or by 2, whatever, we're going to get rid of this. So x, this one's going to be x is less than or equal to 0. And this one here, I'm going to subtract 1, I get 1/2 x. 1/2 x is greater than negative 2. And now to get rid of this 2, I multiply both sides by 2. And so these cancel, and I got x is greater than negative 4, or equal to, sorry. So numbers that are bigger than negative 4 and at the same time less than 0 is right here. Now, if you didn't know how to do that, that doesn't mean you give up. You start putting numbers in. Pick a number like 2. If I put 2 into here, half of 2 is 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. Absolute value 2 is less than 1. That's not true. So right away, since 2 is supposed to be a solution here and here, it's not. So what happens is this is not a solution. So we cross, let me go back to this. We cross off this one and this one because 2 is not a solution, even though it said here. I can try 1. Does 1 work? Half of 1 is 1. Half plus 1 is 1.5 or 1.5, which is nullish. So this one's out, so right away that gives me my answer. So even if you don't know how to do the math for it, the algebra for it, you can use the logic. What the graph's telling you is anything that's shaded is a solution to this equation. Okay, let's go to the next one. This one's a little tricky just because we haven't seen it before. It doesn't mean it's hard. What values of t would make this true? Well, basically what we want to do, we can do write two equations, I guess, if we wanted to. I'd say t minus 150 is less than 5, and t minus 150 is greater than negative 5, or it's going to be or and. So this one, I add 150, and I add 150, and I get t is less than 155. And I add 150 here. T is greater than negative, still negative, not negative, what am I thinking? It's greater than positive 145. So right now I know it's going to be in between, it has to be bigger than 45 and less than 155. So now it looks like it's, let me see if I can see this. How do I get down to the bottom here? I don't want to get this one. Okay. Actually, the answer is this one right here. Because it has to be greater than, not equal to. Because notice this does not have an equal to. So that looks like this one. This is the answer right here. Has both those numbers in it. All right, let's look at number 7. 7, if you want, you could just plug the thing straight in and see what works. Or we can do the math for it. Let's isolate the absolute value sign. Absolute value of 2x equals 4. Now, to get rid of a square root, we're going to square both sides. We square the left side to do that, and square the right side to do that. The square root of a square goes like this, and I get 2x equals 4 squared. 4 times 4 is 16. Now I divide by 2. X equals 8. And as with any problem that has a square root, we want to check the number to see if it works. So 2 times 8, that's 16. Square root of 2 times 8 plus 5 equals 9. Square root of 16 plus 5 equals 9. 4 plus 5 equals 9. That's correct, so there's my correct answer there. We're moving along. Number 8 here. My suggestion is we just plug it straight in. If we could do the math, we'd have to do square root of 3x plus, or 3, not 2. 3x plus 10 equals x minus 10. And then to get rid of the square root, I'm going to square both sides. Remember, I square like this, and that's going to be 3x plus 10 equals, when I square this, I got to do FOIL. That's going to be x squared, not plus, minus. X squared minus, what's that going to be, 20x plus 100. And now to solve this, I want to get this side here to be 0 so I can factor. So I'm going to subtract 3x. And I got 10 equals x squared minus 23x equals plus 100. To get rid of this 10 now. 0 equals x squared minus 23x plus 90. And now I want to see if I can factor this, and I certainly can. X and x, numbers that multiply to 90 and add to 23. 9 times 10 adds to 19, not quite going to cut it. But 18 times 5 works, so I'm going to put 18 and 5. And they're both the same sign, both minuses. So I have two things multiplied to equal 0. That means either x minus 13 equals 0, x minus 18 equals 0, or x minus 5 equals 0. Actually, then I have to go through, I've got to solve this, plus 18, plus 18. So x equals 18. Plus 5, x equals 5. So there's two solutions to this problem that we have to look at. And then we always want to see, does it work in the original equation? If it works, it's considered a solution or a root. If it doesn't work, we call it an extraneous root, but it has to be one of these numbers. So when I put 18 into here, I get square root of 3 times 18 plus 10 equals x minus 10. 3 times 18 is 54. Oops, 54. 54 plus 10 equals 18 minus 10. So 54 plus 10 is 64, so square root of 64 equals 8. 8 equals 8, that's a true statement, so this is a solution, but they're asking for an extraneous root, not the actual root. So some of you picked 18 because you went through the work and solved it, or plugged it in and it worked, and that's great, but they're asking for the extraneous root, so that's going to be most likely 5. Let's put it in and see, make sure 5 doesn't work also. I can do that over here. I'm going to put the square root of 3 times 5 plus 10 equals 5 minus 10. So that's the square root of 25 equals negative 5, and it does not. 5 equals negative 5, because the square root is always the positive value. Square root of 25 is only 5, not negative 5, so this is not a true statement. So 5 is my extraneous root. Difficult problem. Okay, this one here, 16 to 2/3, there's a couple of ways we can do. That's going to be the square root of 16 to the 3rd power. The square root of 16 is 4, so it's 4 to the 3rd, which equals 64, and that's that. Or you can go straight to the calculator. Remember, if you go to the calculator, you're going to go 16, and then this is the power button. Now we need to do parentheses, 3 divided by 2, and we're going to get 64. Same thing with this problem. When we plug this in, we say 64 to the power of negative 2/3. So that's what this says. So I'm going to rate this as 64 to the power of parentheses negative 2 divided by 3. And we're going to get 1/16. Okay, next problem. We're getting through this. Let's look at this one. We want to do, what I did with this one is I said basically there's an exponent of 1 here. Each exponent is multiplied to 3/4 power. So 16 to the 3/4 times b to the negative 4 times 3/4. Excuse me, yeah, that's a a, not b. A times b to the power of 12 times 3/4. So 16 to the 3/4 is 8, and that's going to be a to the negative 3, and b, what is that, 4, and that cancels, to be 9. And that isn't written there in that form, but this negative exponent goes to the bottom of the fraction, and we get this number right here, c. Okay. This one here, we want to get the square root out of the bottom of a fraction. So I'm going to multiply the top and bottom by square root of 5. So that's the square root of 5 on top. And square root of 5 times square root of 5 is 5. And that's what we get right there. Okay. In simplifying this, what I would do is I would make this one big square root. 2 times 6 is 12. And then y to the 5th. And that's what I would look at. Okay, that's good. Now, how can I simplify that? What comes out? This is the old way we did it with Mr. Brockman. We said 12 is 2 times 3, because 4 times 3. And then 5y is 2, 3, 4, 5. That's what we have. Square root, we want to get things common. So these guys we're going to circle. Cross one off and bring it outside. These guys, cross one off and bring it outside. And these guys, cross one off and bring it outside. So in front of the fraction now I have 2 and then 2y's, 2y to the second, and what's left inside is 3y. And that's the answer right there. Okay, we're a little more than halfway done. The i's kind of caused some difficulty. So what this is basically is going to be negative 2 to the 5th times I to the 5th. That's how I would have done this. So negative 2 to the 5th, negative times a negative times a negative, 5 negatives is still going to be negative. So it's going to be negative 32. And then I to the 5th is just I. So negative 32I d. And now I'm looking at this. This is key. This is not multiplication. Do not FOIL. This is plus. We're just going to write it like it is. 8 plus 4i plus 10 minus 2i. And just go back to Algebra 1 and combine like terms. 8 and 10, that's 18. 4 minus 2 plus 2i. 18 plus 2i is a. Okay. 16, the product. That does mean multiply, so we have some foiling to do. 4 times 2. Did I skip one? No. Oh, I did skip one, didn't I? Yeah. What happened here? Oh, I don't want that. I didn't skip anything. I moved it to the other side of the, what's going on here? I don't want to do this. Okay, hold on a second. Let me fix this up a little bit. I want to go back over. I like it on that side better. Okay, sorry. 15 we did. 16 we didn't do. I'm going to do 16, sorry. So I need to do all of them. So we're going to multiply 3i times 6. That's 18i. 3i times 2i, that's a minus 6i squared. Now that's going to be 18 minus 6 times negative 1, because I squared is negative 1, so that's going to be plus 6, 18i plus 6. So we would write that then as 6 plus 18i. Right? 18i, yeah. Okay, now we go to the next problem. Okay, for this one here, we're going to do FOIL. So 4 times 7, that's 28. 4 times 6i, that's going to be minus 24i. And we're done with the 4. Now we can multiply those two, plus 14i minus 12i squared. So this becomes 28. These two combine together to be minus 10i. And this is minus a negative 12, because 12 times negative 1 is negative 12. So negative times a negative is positive, so plus 12. So 28 plus 12 is 40 minus 10i. So that's going to be right here. Okay, let's move on. Number 18, write the conjugate of this. Now the problem of the following complex number, I'm not going to count this problem because it's a little confusing. The conjugate, this is not a complex number right here, unless it's written correctly. Negative 3 plus 2i is what they meant to write, and they wanted you to go from this point to this point, and then the conjugate would be negative 3 minus 2i. So this is the correct answer. It's just a little tricky because the I should be over here. So that's something we hadn't worked on, and I wouldn't expect that to be on any other exams. So this one here, we're going to look at this as 5 over 3 plus I. We multiply top and bottom by the conjugate of the bottom, which is 3 minus I. So now the top of the fraction becomes 15 minus 5i. And the bottom of the fraction becomes 3 times 3, that's 9, minus 3i plus 3i, and then minus I squared. So that's going to be 9. These will cancel. And minus I squared is minus negative 1, which is plus 1, so over 10. And I'll notice that's not one of my solutions. So what I have to do is go back and say, can I, that's a 10. That's a crazy looking 10. So now what I want to do is notice that all three of these numbers are divisible by 5. So I divide by 5 in all of them. And that becomes 3 minus I over 2. That one right there. Okay, this one, find the roots of this. So they want you to go through the steps of the square rooting. So I'm going to base minus 6 minus 6. And that's going to be x squared minus 4x equals negative 6. And then what number would go here is going to be half of negative 4 squared. So that's negative 2 squared is plus 4. And this side is plus 4. So now I have parentheses x minus 2 squared equals negative 2. Negative 6 plus 4 is negative 2. Now what I want to do is get rid of the squared by taking the square root. So this becomes x minus 2 equals the square root of negative 2, which we've taught a long time ago. We can't have a square root of a negative number until we learned about imaginary numbers. So this would simply be, remember when I take the square root, I'm going to have plus or minus. So it would be plus or minus 2, no, not 2. We write it like this, I times the square root of 2. And now to get rid of this 2, I simply add 2 to both sides. X equals 2 plus or minus I squared 2. And that's what the answer we're looking for, 2 plus or minus I root 2. Okay, a few more problems and then we'll be done. Consider the solving the equation by completing the square. The first thing I did, we would do is subtract 5 from both sides. And we're left with this sentence right here. The question now is what number goes here and here? It's the same number, but what number is it going to be? Half of 12 is 6. 6 squared is 36. That's what goes there. So the answer is 36 for that one. We should never miss that. This one here.
Ashley Sanchez, please follow security. Once again, Ashley Sanchez, please follow the security. Once again, Ashley Sanchez, please call security. Once again, this is for Ashley Sanchez. Ashley Sanchez, please call security. Thank you.
Okay, so this is what we have right now. Sorry about the interruption there. This is what we have. We can't factor this. We want to solve by completing the square. So our first step, just like in the last one, in fact, it's the exact same problem now that I notice it. It's the exact same numbers. So we're going to subtract 5 from both sides. and I got x squared plus 12x, leave a space, equals negative 5. The question is what number goes here. Will be half of this number squared. Half of 12 is 6. 6 squared is 36. So plus 36 plus 36. So the left side becomes x plus 6 squared equals negative 5 plus 36 is 29. What am I doing here? Okay, hold on a second. What did I do? Half of that, that's negative 5. Hey, hold on a second, let me pause this.
Are you on the phone or something?
No, I'm doing a video, hold on.